love those pictures of
Hello,
you.
welcome to MOMFIT with Joe Peters. I am Joe, the Unicorn Coach, your host on this amazing show that is all about helping you to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the H.E.R Network on the single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective stores in iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, make sure to rate us and leave us a comment. The app is free. And if you don't want to have an app in your phone, you can also access Single TV in all the smart TVs since 2016 through Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick anytime to watch MOMFIT with Joe Peters and all the other amazing shows that we have in the Spanglish World Network community. I want to invite you to follow me if you are not following me yet. Like it shows in the screen, Joe Unicorn Coach. I handle my social media myself. So if you're having an issue, a challenge, a question, or if you are getting to the edge of burnout, trying to run the marathon of motherhood, send me a message. That if I don't know the answer on how to help you, I will find an expert like Stace that will come here and we will help you together because our mission is don't leave any mother behind. We need to win that marathon of motherhood together, no matter if we are in mile 1 or in mile 21. I am super excited, super excited. This is a very special episode um, that is going to help so many women around the world. I am honored to have my dear friend, soul sister, coach, mentor, um, ride or die, good friend, Stace. Stace, in addition to be one of those women in my life that is in my inner circle that I don't know how I will be able to live my life and my motherhood without her. She is also an amazing best-selling author. She is a double time certified coach. She is passionate about breaking down the research and the rigors of positive psychology and conscious parenting into bite sizes, easy to digest for busy, stressed parents. Because let's gonna be honest, we don't have time, and that is where Stace make her magic, where she take all of that and just give you the extract part for you to thrive in your journey. Her motivational content began with 1 minute videos and grow into a top rated podcast, masterclasses, workshops, private groups, and group coaching. I'm being her client for both one on ones and group coachings, and it's been absolutely amazing. She's also an international speaking engagement guru, and she now travels the world with her kids and her husband trying to break the paradigm of what should a family be doing in those early years. She also have published 5 international best-selling books, and we are been talking today about her newest book, her newest release that is all about how to conscious parenting your ADHD child. After decades of studying personal improvement and child development, she became the mom of a child with learning magic,
Differences.
differences, magic,
Yeah, magic,
ADHD, and
right.
autism. She immersed herself even deeper into research to make sure that she was doing the right thing for her family and her son. Um, in 2020, she did something that a lot of us are afraid of. She quit her 7-figure executive career in the
Mhm.
Silicon Valley, California bubble, and she is living now her dream as a mom, as an author, as a parenting mindset coach. And she and her husband Barry and her two amazing boys, Dashiell 13 and Declan 10, are world schooling. They have been on Spain, Greece, Portugal, Mexico, Costa Rica, Scotland, and
Mhm.
just what they have so far in the last 2 3 years. Stace, thank you so much for being here. I love you, and I'm so excited for this conversation and how we are going to invite everybody to get their hands in your book and start finding a different way.
Yes. Well, any chance I have to chat with you is a joy, obviously. And we learn and we grow every time we do. So thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for helping me just save more children from therapy later in life. That's my mission. Says we know where it all comes from, and when we're around 25, 30, 40, we're like, oh, I just need to understand my life and get better. And so if we can do a better job when they're babies and teens and toddlers, then we can help them live really healthy, thriving, vibrant, confident, resilient lives.
I love, I was talking with you a couple of weeks ago and you were like, I want to make sure that they have a childhood that they don't need a therapy to recover from. That is what
Hmm.
all of us are doing in our therapies and in our
Yeah.
inner work.
Right.
Not bashing our parents. They did the best that they could with what they want. But
Amen.
now
Amen.
we know better and then we can do better. So let's go to start a little bit briefly with your story. How that paradigm of what motherhood will be was shattered and challenged for you when you start actually paying attention to your son needs and start finding that what he need didn't fit the box of what
Yeah.
should be. Let's gonna start there.
Well, I will say that I'm lucky that I had parents who did question a lot of convention. My dad always questioned education, but also it was always a battle sort of in his head and now in my head because we're a very academic family. He went to Stanford, Harvard, UCLA, and has his PhD. Like, so we're always really academic, but also questioned it. So I've always questioned it. And when I had my son, he had a lot of learning differences right away. Everybody wanted to fix him and get him therapies and get him into special ed. And
We lost her. So I'm sure that she's going to come back in any minute. I think that, I don't know, I think that she's in California, but she may still be in Costa Rica. I don't know where in what part of the world she is. But one of the things that I love about her approach and why actually she is my parenting coach, because, like I always tell you, we all need a coach. That is that she took that opportunity and that understanding of what was coming in front of her. And instead of trying to make Dash and her kids fit what society was telling it should be, she actually went into a journey of changing herself and the people around her to support Dash in the most positive, supportive way. And then when Declan came, then Declan just graft the harvest the fruits of what was already happening with Dash. So a lot of that happened, um and Stacey's already here. Let me see if I can get Eduardo's attention. Um he needs to let you in. Let me see if I can. He probably went out of the computer. Um So, one of the things that this is so important is because now we are having, in my opinion, an epidemic of diagnosis. And like never before, we have, like, I was talking with with Stace, we have people, there we go. Thank you. Georgia is here, and then Edu. I think that Stacey's here, but she's in the back stage. Um, there we go. Oh, now we have two Georgias, but we don't have one Stacy. We are back, but we have two
Sorry.
Georgias: a black Georgia and a video Georgia. Okay, so
I just
we
want to point out this is live. This is just dealing with the world and how we manage when things don't go perfectly. And that is real life. So, no big deal. Like, I just somehow lose my connection every now and again, and then need Eduardo to open the door back for me. But that's okay. No big deal. Thank you.
thank you, Edu. We don't know what we will do without you and all your magic as our TV producer. But then what I was telling is that it's an epidemic right now, and I was telling them and for everybody, Georgia is joining us. Georgia is another one, is the third wheel of our tricycle. And we are going to be just chatting, the three of us, into this conversation. But one of the things that I'm being very aware of and surprised is how many more diagnoses of ADHD, autism are right now for kids. Sometimes even with 1 year old, a year and a half year old, like toddlers that are already being labeled into, oh, you are going to be for the rest of your life going to be labeled into this ADHD, into this autism. And
Yeah.
the reality is we need to understand a little bit more of that and what is happening. So I would love to hear
Yeah.
both of you. Edu, I like the first one where we still see um, the purple. There we go. I think that I like that one. Georgia, if you turn your phone sideways, uh, so the other way, then I think there we go. That is absolutely perfect. So I would love to hear a little bit about that. Like, what is that label? What that label means? And I know, Stace, that you have that concept of ADHD, what that means. And then I would also love for Georgia to share a little bit about how these concepts are being helping her with her kids, even though they don't have the label and they are not being
Yeah.
diagnosed, to just show that this apply to all of us as moms. So, Stacey, why we don't talk a little bit about that label and what that is?
Yeah, first of all, labels can be helpful and they can be hurtful. It just depends on what your mindset around them is. So early on, when everybody was saying, oh, he has attention deficit disorder, like I knew right away words have power. And, to keep using this deficit disorder and it's bad, it wasn't going to work for me. And so I immediately changed it to dear human developing. That's all he's doing. And he's just developing at a different pace, in a different way, on a different path. And, as soon as you sort of change that perspective, you see your child differently. And when look at something differently, then they behave differently. They're going to live up to the expectation that you have for them. And if you see them as broken or deficit or disordered, then they are going to fit into that. But if you see them as merely developing in a different way, then you're going to show up differently for them. And then they're going to show up differently. Um, I also think with this huge influx of diagnosis, there's a lot of theories around it. Is it, that it's always been there, we've just never noticed it? Is it that the diagnostic scale is changing? I do believe that there's a lot to be said for the technological advances that we have had recently and the development of our brain just on a biological level, and I think that our brains aren't growing as fast and keeping up with what's happening in our world and how fast we're moving. And so we're all reacting differently to it. Uh, So anyway, when my son was diagnosed, I just immediately said, I'm not going to look at him that way. I'm not going to try to fit him into a box, into an IEP, into a school system, to a socially conditioned belief system that says he is X, he needs to be Y, we can get him there through Z. Like it doesn't work that way. So I just immediately was like, no, we're going to throw that out the door. It's a total risk. It doesn't fit in the box. There's a lot of judgment. So in my book, I talk about labels. I talk about judgment. How do we deal with the judgment? I talk about them not being broken. I also talk a lot about the mom guilt. And is it my fault? ADHD is not because of bad parenting. And it's shocking how many people believe that still. And so I really use the book to debunk that myth.
I love that. G was gonna talk a little bit about how some of these principles, now that stays drop again, how these principles that you're been learning from Stace are helping also your relationship with Peak and Coda, and because they don't have the label and they diagnose, but it's still they're applicable.
It's actually a great question. I really appreciate you asking me because I do have 2 boys, and they're 12 and 13 now. They haven't always been 12 and 13, and 12 and 13 is still challenging. But, my children, they don't have any labels, but that doesn't mean that everything is really easy as a mom, and it doesn't mean that I can't take different ideas from different I modalities might be the right word, but from different, schools of thought and bring them into my parenting. You see, for me, I only know what I know. I only know from the experiences I went through as a child. But one of the biggest things that has helped me become a better parent to interact with my children has actually been the opportunity to work with Stacey because she has opened my eyes to a different way of seeing how things can work and a different way to view what's happening. So, for instance, instead of seeing something as this child is being obstinate, simply being like, this child actually doesn't know. They're not here trying to make my life harder. They're here trying to learn. And they're in that position of, I just really don't know what it is you want. So I'm doing the best I can. So I've been able to take these different moments, and sometimes I've been pulling my hair out. I've called Stacey, she is my coach as well, and I have called her in tears saying, "Please help me. I need you. I don't know what to do. I feel like throwing this child off a cliff. I know I can't do that. I'm so frustrated." And and she has said, "Hey, wait a second. Let's talk. Let's figure this out." And she's gone through and she's listened and she's helped me and she's given me these tools. And I hang up with her and I go, "How do you know these things? I like, where do they come from?" And just I know she's gone through a ton of different experiences in her life, and she has this way of just seeing things and saying, "Let's look at it this way." And to be perfectly honest with you, the things she's taught me, I actually have a company and I have 14 employees, and I have called her as well to say, "I don't know what to do with this situation," and she continues to help me, and it all seems to be based off of these same principles, and it's made a massive difference in my relationship with my children. You see, a long time ago, real quick story, but a long time ago, I saw this photo of a family, and they were in a different country. I don't remember what country they were in, but it was like a grandma and grandpa, and their kids were there, and then they had their grandkids around them, and they all looked happy in this photo. And I remember going, "I want that. I'm gonna have that." But the only way for me to become a grandparent where my kids and my grandkids hang out with me is if I change what I'm doing now. And so that picture has given me the opportunity to see, "Hey, wait, I need to do this better, and how do I do it better?" And so, Stacey has really helped me with all of those moments of, "Ah!" and
I will
giving
tell
them something else to
it's
move forward.
one secret, and I'm gonna give it all to you right now. Like, you don't have to read a million books, you don't have to watch a million things, you don't have to take a million courses. The number one secret is to get inside the head of the child. Where is the child? What is the child thinking? Really, because as soon as because we're always parenting from the past or the future and not the present moment and not where the child is right now. And we make a lot of assumptions about where the child is from. They're just being naughty. They're just trying to manipulate me. They're just trying to get their way, which, by the way, a lot of times they are because they're a child and that's all they know. But if
But
you
we're trying to
really,
get our way too.
yeah,
That's all I have to
exactly.
say about that.
Exactly, exactly. But we don't remember that they don't have the decades of experience and neurological, biological development that we do, right? And so, but by the way, I know, you know, adults in conversations that are both still trying to get their way. And, that we have so much conditioning around being right. That I see people fighting over whether something was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And you just kind of, if you can step back and go, does it really matter? Like, does it, I would rather be right, or do I want to be happy? Do I want to suffer, struggle, fight, or does it matter? Does it matter with adults? Now, with kids, instead of like, does it matter if I'm right or wrong? Where I really try to go is, what's the lesson that needs to be taught right now? What is the thing? What's the lagging skill that they need to learn? And where does my wisdom come from? My God, it just comes from 30 years of studying my own personal development. Like, how do I be better? How do I think better? How do I see the world differently? How do I have more compassion? And then when I had kids, it was like, oh, wow, they're going to be my greatest teachers. They're going to be my greatest teachers in compassion, curiosity, patience, um, and really saying, wow, they're just in a different space, different, you know, um, astro level than I am. And how do I meet them where they're at to get them to a place where they can do this on their own?
And I think that is important, super important, what both G and Stace are saying, because I love the reframe. Because some of you are watching and you're like, well, my kid is not labeled ADHD, so that what they are
Hmm.
talking is for those kids that had those challenges. And the reality is, when you start seeing it as a dear human developing, that is what stays transform the ADHD label, then every single one of our children is a dear human developing. And then I love that is why G is also as a guest, because I would love to have that comparison of we do it into the plays, um and then see how we can apply it immediately. And actually, it's matter of, I will say, I love how G interrupt and say we have our own um expectations too. And I will tell you a little story. Stays drop and is in the backstage again, Edu, so I'm sorry. And one thing is that they I was doing the uh, bedtime routine, and we were getting so frustrated because we were trying to do the bedtime routine, and um my baby was like, oh, I am hungry after was in bed, dark, everything. And both Justin and I were so frustrated. I told you, Stace is one of my coaches for parenting. So we were talking with Stace, and Stace was like, why you are so frustrated? Why you are so upset about it? And we were like, because that is our time. If he goes to bed early, we have that. And then Stace was like, well, that is your expectation. What if you just drop that? And it really changed that part of actually drop the struggle, um
The
and then
suffering comes from the expectation, not from the child. It comes from the expectation that we have that that child is going to go to bed at 8 o'clock because I have an expectation that that is my downtime and I get to watch TV and hang out with my husband and drink a glass of wine. And your child is like, nope, it's not. So you can either fight with your child, or you can change the situation. They're not going to change the child yet because he's growing and he's developing, and he is going to go to sleep at 7. He's going to go to bed at 10. Like, I don't know exactly when. We're going to do all kinds of little tips and tools, and we're going to try strategies for a bedtime routine. But the struggle is, I need you to go to bed at this time because this is the expectation that I have. But as soon as you let go of that struggle and embrace it and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to work around you, and we're going to help you learn the skill of falling asleep. And I'm going to let go of the idea that I need to go, sit and do my Netflix binging right now, and just enjoy that I get to help you fall asleep, even if it takes 3 hours, which it did with my child every night.
thank goodness for my note. But let's gonna talk a little bit, for I want to hear from both of you on this one, and because this is a probably almost getting into that cliche concept that everybody is using it. But let's gonna talk a little bit about Stace and then G, your opinion and how that feels. What actually is conscious parenting? When we are saying we are conscious parenting a dear human developing, while we are talking about what is that difference G was saying before from all the modalities that are there, how this one is different and what requires from us as the parent to support them in their growing.
I think it's just a more mindful approach, that the child didn't come here to be your fantasy child and have your fantasy experience of what you think it's supposed to look like. They came to be their own spirit and soul and have their life, not a better version of the person you thought you should have been. And connecting with them and where they're at and who they want to be and their interests, and giving them a voice, and setting boundaries and helping guide them. It's not a free for all. But it's just being more mindful and not being as parent knows best. It's, we are Sherpas, we're Sherpaing them, not shoving them through life. And I just think, as conscious parents, we are more aware of how imperfect we are as people, and with our beliefs and our ideas and our conditioned responses. So we are parenting ourselves and our own inner child as well, so that we can show up the best for our children.
I would
And
agree with
I
Stacey. I
don't
think
have
that that's definitely what conscious parenting is. I also, for me, when Stacey kind of introduced this idea to me, I I started to realize that we were kind of talking about it earlier about being present. So just this concept for me of, in that moment when I'm talking to my child, not that this has happened or anything, about grades and about, okay, you know what? You're 12 years old, you're in 6th grade, and we have to get this grade going. We have to get good grades. And then he's saying, I hate school, I hate school, I hate school. So instead of me saying, well, you have to get good grades because that's what's going to rule the rest of your life, being able to go, I totally understand that you hate school. And be honest with you, I hated it too when I was your age. But the whole point in school is just really to get in the rhythm of being able to pull things off and make things happen. But we don't have to do homework for the rest of our life, depending on our career or depending on the path that we go in. Sometimes we do. depending on what your path career is, but your career path. But I think conscious parenting is about being in the exact moment that you're in at that time. So instead of, like we were saying, instead of living from the past or living from the future, being able to go, what does this child need immediately, right here, right now? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's going on inside of their head? And then recognizing that the words that I say and the way I react go into his head as well. And it says, hey, this is how you should react in the future. This is how you should think. And so I need to make sure that I'm not implanting anything that's negative as much as I possibly can not implant that. And I need to make sure that I am guiding and loving, still being firm. Firm is okay. There's a difference between saying, hey, you know what, we said no, so we're not going to go down that path. Even if there's an explosion, like we can still stay firm and kind without living from the reactions that we had from our parents in our past or our expectations for the future. And that to me is what conscious parenting is. And I've learned that from you, Stacey. So thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep popping in and out. I come back.
Are you in
I
Costa
just keep
Rica?
going to the backstage.
Are you in Costa Rica? Maybe it's internet, or
No,
you're in California?
no, I'm in California and I don't lose anything. They just keep throwing me backstage. But so I don't know what's happening, but it's okay. I'll just keep coming back. So we're just
So
making it interesting.
yes, absolutely. I want to hear now a little bit of why do you decide, Stace, to write this book that is launching? I know that you are being for a long time coaching groups and one-on-one, like you are being coaching G and me. What was that need that you saw into, okay, I need to put this into a book, and where that mission came on, and what do you compile in that book for the parents that are trying to do things different, like G, like me, that, like we were talking at the beginning of the episode, that are trying to raise kids that don't need therapy like we do.
Yes. Well, so first of all, it's interesting because I was in a support group a couple days ago, and she introduced me as a parenting expert. And I was like, please don't introduce me as a parenting expert, because I think it's an oxymoron, that word. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a parenting expert. I think that there is a mindset coach and Sherpa and guide, but I just have to say that expert, I think, is such an unfair word for parents, because it sets me up as somehow I am better than, and I've got it figured out, and my children are going to be perfect, and that parent I'm coaching is less than perfect and trying to get to perfect. And there is no perfect. There is just the journey. And I think it's really important not to set us up as better than, less than. It really is just knowledge and awareness and study. And I have just been studying a lot. And hey, Eduardo. And so the reason for the book, though, is because there's so many books out there. There's so much noise and so much social media. And honestly, I wanted to write a short book because I have ADHD. I don't have the attention span to be able to read a 300-page book that has a lot of research and science in it. And I'm not able to go even on social media and follow people, because I go down this rabbit hole, and 4 hours later I'm watching gender reveals and looking and I'm saving DIY projects for a home I don't even have, so I can't do it. But it's all the things I wish I had known in really short form, with a sense of humor. It's all the research you need, but that you don't necessarily need to be overwhelmed with. And it's just that sort of gut wrenching truth, because my very first chapter is, what if everything we've told about parenting is a lie? And it's the lie about expectations. It's the lie that we're supposed to be perfect and we're supposed to get it right. And it's the lie that, that even one strategy is going to work for every child. And it isn't, I mean, it used to be that the timeout chair is going to work, and, that punishment is going to work, and shame. If punishment worked, you would never have to do anything twice. You'd never have to tell them twice. But
And she dropped again.
Yeah.
And I love what she's saying into the expectations. And go ahead.
sorry, I literally just go backstage. I'm not sure. Like, it's just sort of hide and seek, peekaboo. Um, but if you have an expectation that this is all supposed to go perfectly, then we're just teaching you that, what, it's all good. It's all fine. So, sorry, what was the question?
No, we were talking about the book and how the first chapter is what if everything that we knew about parenting was wrong or was a lie. I would love for G to share with us one that she learned that she was a lie, something that she was taught a
Yeah.
lie. I would share mine about talking. And I actually feel so sorry for so many moms in the toddler group on the same month that my baby was born that were putting their kids into speech therapy and 3 million things of therapy because their kids were not saying 100 words by the time that they
Hmm.
were 12 months, and then their speech parenthesis, I know that there are cases where there is a speech development, but at one point we just let an external source like a doctor or science tell us your kid had a speech development issues or a speech delay, and at what time we trust our own child. I remember having that worry because it was my baby was almost a year and a half and he was only doing sign language. Georgia taught me how to do sign language with my baby. He was not speaking. And then I start worry like, do we need to put him into this therapy? And I think that is where we get into the rabbit hole because then since they are babies, they start getting the label, oh, he's delayed, he need therapy, he need extra. And that is a hat that I believe is hard to take off later. And I will tell you, everything was a lie. I trust, I keep doing what I can do, keep reading a lot of books, keep
Hmm.
reinforcing, keep telling him sign language so he could communicate and don't get frustrated. And then 3 months after he turned two, he just one day start and now he's a parrot and he doesn't shut up and he has this amazing vocabulary that even in his school they said that his vocabulary is so advanced. So that was an example of something in parenting that was a lie. It was a lie that if my child was not saying 100 words by the time that he was one, he will have a speech delay. Gee,
Yeah,
what about
it's
you? What
yeah.
is one that it was a lie, a parenting thing that they teach you that you learned that was a lie?
That my children are supposed to listen to me the first time I ask them to do something. And if they don't do it right away, then there is something wrong. Either I'm doing a bad job as a mom or they're not doing a good enough
Mhm,
job as
mhm.
children. And that it yeah. I have really struggled with that because I remember my son when he was 2, he has such a strong personality, and I like I said, I do have 2, you guys know that, and, the first one, my older one, my 13-year-old, they're only 14 months apart to the day. So I've never known anything different, I've never had children, like, with a gap between them really. But the first one, he was so easy, so I just assumed the second one would be easy as well. I just assumed it would just be like, "Okay, we're gonna do," and he would sign to me. My first one, he would sign to me, and it was very, very easy. He caught on to signs. My second one, he was kind of like, "Hmm, you
Mhm.
can he can sign for me. I'm cool.
Mhm.
I'll figure it out a different way." He was so, like, strong and such a like a, "I can do this on my own, and I don't have to follow your path." And that was really tough and really hard for me because he didn't want to follow my path, and I didn't understand that he had his own personality, and that was why he wasn't following my path. My path wasn't wrong, but neither was his. And I could have learned to work with his path and helped him and worked with him in a different way. And I remember when he was 2, I remember just sitting there screaming at him and just being
Mhm.
like, "Ah!" Like literally, honestly, this demon was coming out of me. And he was just looking up at me like I was an idiot. And I really was struggling with him so much because I just had no idea how to connect with him. And I didn't actually know Stacey at that point in time. And I really, really wish I had the different tools that she's given me because I could have taken a step back and I could have said, "You know what? It's okay, bud. We know that we have to get in bed at this time, or we know we need to take a shower. What do you think your steps are to get in the shower?" And I could have let him write his own path instead of me forcing mine.
I
And
think one of the things you said, I don't want to interrupt you, but it's so, so important what you said, and I don't want to gloss over it, is that we have this idea that when our children are being obedient and compliant and doing it as our expectation is, then we're a good parent. You know, that it's whether we're a good parent, that they're a reflection on us as to whether we are good or we are bad. And it
We are good or we are bad. The internet don't want us to give this message to the masses. We are good or we are bad. Go, sister.
Thank you, Eduardo, for hanging in there with me. I don't know why I'm playing this game, um, but the lie is that A plus B equals C. That a good parent plus good parenting equals a good child. And so, if something is wrong with A or B or C, or if the child, isn't good, then it's something wrong with one of those things. And there's nothing wrong, that there's just different. And every parent that has more than one child understands at some point it can't be my parenting because they're so different. I didn't do anything different with them, you know? So, he says my connection bars are low, but on my computer it says I have full of bars. So I don't know what that means. Um, on my side, they're all green, all my bars. Oh no, that one's low. Now, oh no. Anyway, okay, sorry. I'm getting distracted. See, I have ADHD. So, um, anyway, yeah. So I think that if you can stop, then the number one trick I can give you is definitely the pause. Is to stop in the moment before you start getting wrapped up in what this means about me and what this means about my parenting and what this means about this child and what this means about my evening and my routine and how I'm going to set this up and and if he doesn't go to bed at 8:30 and I don't get my Netflix and my wine, then I'm going to be a bad parent. He's going to be a bad child, and he's going to become a drug addict and homeless. And like I like go to the extreme. And no, it just means he's not tired right now. That's it. That what do we do? And so if you can stop getting wrapped up in the what does this mean about me and what does this mean about his future and what is this all of this expectations, that's the biggest lie.
And I love the connection between you and what G was saying of my way and my path. And sometimes we have these little mavericks that are like, F you,
Yeah.
I want my own path and I'm going to forge it. And, but that part of that is that reparenting ourselves because we are being taught almost like a hierarchical, like we know better, we
Yes.
are the parent. If they don't do what we said, then they are not going to learn, and then they're going to be spoiled and they're going to get screw up for the rest of their life. And I love how G was saying, like, sometimes it's about remembering that it's not my way or the highway, that we can negotiate. Like, one really quickly one was everybody was like, do not negotiate with your child. You are going to, like, do not negotiate. Well, guess what? My child is a negotiator. My child will always push you into, okay, we need to go. And then we say 2 minutes. And he's like, 5? And then if I was going into the trap of not negotiating, we will get into a battle because
And you
he
get into the
likes
trap because you say, oh my gosh, everybody tells me I shouldn't negotiate. I shouldn't negotiate. I'm going to be a bad parent if I don't do that. And you know, that's where we go to, where instead, by the way, the opposite of a negotiating child is likely a compliant child who might just be compliant because they're afraid or because they need to please you. And now you're going to create a people pleasing child, or you're going to create a doormat child who's just going to do things, because people told him to. So, and it's not that we want one or the other. We are trying to just give them the skills so that they don't that they know how to navigate life. Sometimes it's going to be to negotiate, and sometimes it's going to be to be compliant and just do as we're told with that boss because I need to get the paycheck or whatever it is. But to be able to do that with some self-esteem, some confidence, with awareness, with resilience, that's what we want to teach them.
And one thing that I just find out with the negotiation is a lot of the times I can negotiate. If he's in the shower after swimming and he wants to stay 3 freaking more minutes, that is not going to destroy the rest of my day. And then what I found is as more as I let him do the negotiation, as less tears are, as less fighting are, and as easier it is for him to understand when there are few times that I'm like, no, sweetheart, this is it. We are not going to negotiate. We are not going to go here.
Because they're at an age where they're learning, they're building these neural pathways. So to say no negotiating is just, it's so rigid, and it's just not taking into consideration where they are. And at 2.5, he is saying, I'm learning the consequences of asking and changing, and they want more autonomy and agency over their life. They want yeses, because so much of their life is controlled by somebody else. So the more we can say yes and give them the ability to have agency, they're going to have more confidence. Then they're not going to be battling for it. So yeah, Georgia is definitely like, oh yeah, I feel that. I can see that. Where do you see that?
Where do I see that if I give them agency,
Yeah.
that they're not battling
Hmm.
over it?
Yeah.
A lot of times with grades is
Hmm.
where I see that. Um, I Yeah, it's with grades. I would say grades right now are kind of my biggest challenge, and one of the things that I am struggling with personally is, like, even right here, right now, today is the last day of school, and I heard I'm on this call. My kids know that they needed to go, and they needed to both catch the bus, but I usually take my younger child to school on his own. It just works better for our family. So, but I've only heard the door close one time. So I know that only one of them is on the bus. I know the other one is actually asleep and school starts in 4 minutes. But I grades are one of the things that I think, as a parent, I want my kids to have a certain level because that's what society says, and I want things to be turned in at the exact time. That way I don't get an email from the teacher. That way, whenever I say I volunteer at the school, I don't have to have a teacher come up and say, "Hey, he's missing 9 homework assignments." But that's one of the things where it creates, like, a big battle between us. And so when I step out and I say, "Hey, please tell me where you are with school. You tell me." And I allow him the opportunity to tell me. And I allow him the opportunity to say, "Yes, I got that turned in." And I allow him to do all those things without me saying, "This has to get done, this has to get done, and the grades have to happen," or ah! I feel like he is able to, and he steps up when he's given that opportunity to do it on his own. And, the past few nights, he's had some assignments that haven't been turned in yet. And I didn't say anything about the missing assignments. He was just, instead of on video games, he was sitting on the couch doing his homework. So, when I give him the opportunity to do things on his own and not try and force things on my time frame. And I love how you guys talked about negotiating, because we do negotiate. My husband's a little bit better at that than I am, because I'm like, "Turn it off now." And my husband's like, "How long until you're done with that game?" My son's like, "3 minutes." He's like, "Okay, finish it," and then hop off. And so I'm learning from watching my husband interact that way, that that is a good part of negotiation, and negotiation isn't always like, "I'll give you 3 M&Ms if you give me a homework assignment." You know what I mean? It's not always
That's
that.
bribery. That's not negotiating.
And I love how you're showing that how this can be applied with toddlers, with 13 years old. And this was such an amazing show. Thank you, ladies, for coming here. We need to do this again. I love having you and just talk about all of this journey of winning the marathon of motherhood without burnout. Stace, before we leave, how everybody in the world can get your book, where they can find your book, where they can go and purchase your book and read it and then start applying a lot of the tools that we talk about during this episode for having that conscious parenting to a dear child, um,
A dear human
dear
developing.
human developing. So,
At Amazon.com. You can buy it as a download or you can buy it as a soft copy. It's there. And I would really, really appreciate after you purchase it, if you and it's only $4.99 for a download, so it's really economical, easy to read, short. But I would really, really appreciate if you would buy it and then leave a review, because that is what people want to see. And it's just coming. Actually, it's just on soft launch right now. Only a few people know it's on Amazon. It doesn't really go out publicly until the 11th, but for your audience, they can get it now on Amazon.com.
so everybody in the world that is watching MomFed with Joe Peters, you have the pre-sale of Conscious Parenting, Your ADHD, ADHD Child, Stacey Yates Sellar. Make sure that you go to Amazon.com. If you are watching us in social media, we are going to put the link below. So go there, buy the book, read it, leave her a comment, and let's go now all start doing this approach of conscious parenting our
Thank
children
you.
so they don't need therapy later on. Thank you so much. And for everybody else, please remember that this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. It's time to watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.